started last week the devotional series on stewardship. I call it All In. And stewardship, not primarily about money, but about discipleship. Us responding to God's love and mercy in an appropriate way. God is all in with us, like in a card game or an investment or a relationship. God, in his love, is for us, and he held nothing back. And I referenced Romans 8:32. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? God held nothing back. He's all in. And our proper response is to be all in with him. Again, that's a question of discipleship, of giving ourselves, our time, our talent, our treasure. The Lord enlists those things for his purposes. And his purpose is to love us and to love the people around us. Love God, love neighbor. And last week I talked about compassion and needs, at least I did in the sermon series. And today I'm going to talk about having a mind for that mission. The story of Nehemiah, we've looked at it before, but there's so many powerful lessons there about how do we rebuild and how do we respond well to God's grace. Nehemiah rallied the people for the work of rebuilding the city of Jerusalem, the wall in particular. And along with identifying needs, he also talks about the disposition, the intention, the purpose, the mind of the people there. It says in chapter 4 of Nehemiah, verse 6, so we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height. So they're in the middle of the work, they're not done yet. But it talks about, man, they made such impressive progress. How? For the people had a mind to work. They were committed to it, they were intent. They had a mind for it. Some of you may already know this. On my mother's side, I come from a family of builders. Although my dad was also a home improvement guy, my father liked to tinker around the house, and my maternal grandfather was in bridge construction. So when I came to St. Louis, I was fascinated with the arch. The engineering project it must have been, the feat of construction that it was. And I want to share with you a brief segment of the documentary they have in that museum talking about the building of the construction of the arch and how it began without fanfare in the winter of 1963 with the placing of the first section of the arch.
They saw only hard work, a far-off destination, a thing to be done. They pushed 15 tons, a fraction of an inch, lining it up precisely for the welder's final touch. First piece was ready February 12, 1963. Close by, Lewis and Clark had set out to the sound of cannon shot and cheering. Only the silent snow would witness this beginning. Their goal was over 600 feet and several seasons in the distance. But they had begun.
I love that line in that video. Ahead of them, they saw only hard work, a far-off destination, a thing to be done. And yet it ends with this idea that, well, they got it started, they laid that first thing, and the work had begun. The goal was far in the distance, but they had a mind to do it. And that leads us to ask the question in our personal lives, in our spiritual lives, what do you have in mind? For your family, for your career, your life choices, for your spiritual community. We live in a culture that does not like to delay gratification. If it requires too much work or too much time, we just abandon it and we go into something that can give us pleasure a little more quickly. But what motivates, what drives, what inspires us to persevere? What inspired Nehemiah? Well, it was the love of the city of God. It was a place that marked the fulfillment of God's promises, something bigger than himself. So his personal discouragements, even his career discouragements, he had a bigger picture that drove him through those hardships. It served as a rallying point, not just for him, but for God's people, a place of worship, a place for glory. God and his people should have more than ruins. The same is true today. Now, it's different in that we don't work to build the city of God. Modern day Jerusalem is not exactly what ancient Jerusalem was for the people of God. Instead, God gave us the church. He gave us spiritual communities. Do we have a mind for the work among us? God calls each of us to different things. Our calls are not the same, but we are all here for the same purpose. What is that bigger call? Do we have a mind for that work, for the redemption of God's people and this world? Do we have a mind for that work? I pray we do. Blessings on you all.